It's October 12th, 2023. This is Rook. Welcome to episode 290 of Rook. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. Hello to you from Toronto, Canada. Salam Nustana Aziz Durud. Hope you are doing well wherever you are tuning in from around the world. This program is about talking to Iranians, for the most part, and talking to you about being Iranian and building and understanding our evolving Iranian identity, especially for those of us outside of Iran. Hi, Pega, Smart Pega.
Hello.
Coming up, our feature interview today, Farshad Mottaghi. How about that, huh?
Yeah.
The silver-haired fox, the handsome man, the news anchor, the producer, the presenter, the documentarian when he's out there in the field. Farshad Mottaghi, he's probably one of the most familiar faces on Persian TV. He's a news anchor on Manoto, in case that places him for some people.
Yes.
Mottaghi Khabar is the name, one of his programs. Seems like a lovely guy. I've got to know him a little bit, but I'm looking forward to teasing out his full life journey, his career, his story. The kid from Rasht, who came to the UK in his early 20s and really came to journalism or media later in life. He's done a number of things. I mean, he worked at a newspaper in London called Nimruz for a few years in the 90s, but then was working in business, was doing other things until 8 years ago he gets discovered by Manoto, and now he's a household name and face in the Iranian community around the world. The story of him coming to the UK, I love this story. I have to ask him about this. You know, a lot of people leave Iran for a lot of reasons.
Right.
Many leave because of the situation there. Some are exiled. Some leave because their family is leaving. Some want a better life somewhere else or fancy somewhere else.
And him?
Yes. Farshad Mottaghi. Why did he leave London? Iran for London?
Why?
Love, Pega.
Oh, wow.
Love. It's a love story.
That's amazing.
He followed a girl to England and never saw her again. No.
Oh, come on.
No. It has a happy ending. It's actually the woman he's been with.
Oh.
His wife.
That's incredible.
He followed her to England, and they ended up being together for, I think, 30 years now or something.
Wow. What a story.
What a story. I have to ask him about that. He's, I think he's one of the more trusted sources in Iranian media. People have been asking people about him, and he's got this sort of a very serious and compassionate but trusted tone and appearance and presentation. But he's also very opinionated, I've noticed on social media.
Oh. He's
talking about the events of the world right now in the Middle East and stuff. And so I'm going to get to all that with him. Farshad Mottaghi, our feature interview coming up from London in just a little bit. Before we get to that, you know, we are going to do our Rook Roundup. I want to do it after Farshad today. There's a lot to talk about in terms of stuff going on in Iran and the community and everything. But because it's the top of the show, I wanted to say a couple of words about the Middle East and the situation in Israel and Gaza, especially for those who missed our bonus podcast on Monday, because we did talk about this.
We did.
On Monday, and both of us said some things. I don't really have anything earth-shattering to say, and I do believe it's somewhat redundant or obvious to point out that it's sickening to see innocent people die or have their heads cut off or be burned alive or slaughtered or bombed because they happen to live in a country where there's a terrorist administration or whatever it is. I generally do my best to try to be as objective as I can as a journalist over the years. I mean, I've done what I can to not be too aggressively supportive of any sides or parties or agendas. And for example, I have voted in every election, nationally and provincially in Canada and Ontario for the last 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone knows how I voted, ever. Because I don't tell them, because I want to try and maintain some objectivity.
Right.
If I interview politicians or whatever. And by the way, I think I voted for every party, even some of the weird ones. Like I think I voted every stripe, every color at some point or another in my life. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, now that you're saying that, I'm trying to think if there's been ever anything that you've said that might make me think one way or another.
I mean, there's definitely times in my life where you could guess or know who I voted for, but there are issues that transcend sides and are just about basic human rights, and hence our stated support for and of the uprising in Iran over the last year, and the struggle for basic freedom and democracy there. That's not really a judgment call. It's like fucking, basic human rights, right?
That's right.
So let me simply say this, as I did on Monday, to just address this situation. Not that I really need to. I just wanted to say something, but this is what I wanted to say, because it has to do with Iran, this situation. If you are someone who is fine with the complicity, support, and sponsorship of Hamas by the Islamic Republic of Iran over the years, we're not going to agree. You're not going to like what I have to say. You're not going to like my position on these. If you're out there and you are somehow celebrating the heinous actions of Hamas in Israel last week, the way Ayatollah Khamenei was doing, cheering it on, high-fiving the actions of a group who would kill innocent people at a music festival, or babies or grandmas or whatever, we're not going to agree. You're not going to like what I have to say. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to anybody out there. You looked at me scared there. I mean,
we're on the same page.
Whatever injustice has been done in the past to any group, including Palestinians, and there are atrocities over the years that Palestinians have endured. We all know that, and when they happen, they should be called out. Whatever any feelings about Israel or the West or the United States or Netanyahu, and we've talked about all of them on this show in the last 3 years in all kinds of ways, nothing justifies the Iranian regime support for Hamas and its actions. It is inexcusable. And as we are of Iranian descent, and we do a show about and for Iranians around the world, I think we do have to call out this regime and its sponsorship of terrorism. And that's what I really feel like I can say. I know it's simple, but you're not going to convince me to cheer on Hamas.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Okay.
And I think it's important that, we pinpoint the fact that the Islamic Republic does have a hand in this. I mean, and, we talked about this on Monday. Maybe they didn't, send the orders for this particular attack, but we know that the Islamic Republic has been a supporter of Hamas for so many years. So maybe not, 2 days ago, but it is there. That support is there. And we see it from the tweets, and we see it from the conversations and the support and the money.
Well, I was telling you before we started recording that I do get why the leaders of, it's a strategic or geopolitical or whatever kind of decision, but why the leaders of Israel or the USA, for example, cannot say Iran was definitively behind this, even if they do know it, because there are implications to that. And then you have to, if there's 1,300 or more people in Israel who've died, somebody has to answer for that, and then there's going to be calls to attack Iran, there's military action, whatever. So the implications can be very big, and I get where they have to play this dance, this tentative game of kind of going, well, we don't know for sure, we don't want to, we don't want to WMDs, we don't want to call out the wrong, but for everyone else, like people on social media who are kind of scratching their heads, well, we don't really know if Iran was, come on, this is like the mullahs are celebrating, right? They have been, and so it's kind of a no-brainer. Now that said, I think sadly, I think that the narrative is, in terms of as an observer of media and the population. We were talking about how much support there has been for Israel, actually in the Iranian community around the world, right? We talked about that on Monday. I think things are going to shift in the next few days because there is, as we all also know, an evolving humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
That's right.
And we're going to start seeing that the images of that, and we're going to start being sickened by what we see and what we already know, and there's going to be a debate about what kind of recourse should Israel be taking. Is this too much? Is it fair? Should they be doing it? Why is retribution necessary? Why isn't it? All of that. None of that changes whether we should be condemning Iran, by which I mean the Islamic Republic, the IRGC, for its support of Hamas.
Absolutely. I think it's, like we said on Monday, it's that, it's like saying the individuals who are sitting there discussing the nuances. It's like, who the hell cares? It's not about the nuances. It's about the fact that, this is wrong. Extremism on any side is wrong. Nobody is going to be sitting there celebrating, children being beheaded and this and that. So I agree. And
yeah, you just said something that makes me like, I have noticed there's a lot of like influencer types or something, or celebrities, some of them Iranian, but many others too, that feel the need to say something right now, and they do this platitudinal thing where they sort of go, I'm sad that innocent lives will be lost on both sides, like that kind of thing.
Oh, here we go. I was going to talk about how this is a setback for peace and reconciliation and in the region and all that.
But to me, I don't, it's like Kim Kardashian saying that, not that I don't appreciate. I just don't. I don't know what the point of that. Like, it feels a bit redundant to me. I don't want to challenge anyone's authenticity if they're saying my heart is saddened by this, but I'm not sure. I think we all get that. Nobody wants to see, but babies killed on it. Except for the fucking these, Hamas or whatever. Yeah.
Well, I think everyone gets that, but I think especially in the case of Hamas and the Israeli conflict, the problem is that it's been going on for so many years that sometimes that humanism, that element is lost. Like it's constantly this one-upping of each other and these atrocities, and it's like, Hamas will behead a bunch of children and then Israel will shut off water and access and all sorts of things, and it's just, I think, remembering that at the end of the day there is that level of humanity. I think that's important.
Okay. Yeah.
To play devil's
humanity is
advocate.
important. Yeah. Well, you're not playing devil's advocate. You believe what you just said, right?
Yes, I do.
I love when you say that. You issue an opinion and then you say, "Well, just to play devil's advocate." Yeah. I know. I appreciate what you're saying. I always appreciate what you're saying.
Thank
Smart
you.
Pega. Hence the moniker, Smart Pega. Otherwise, you'd just be simple.
Just simple, plain old Pega.
Actually, Simple Pega would have the same acronym.
It would.
Yeah. So there's so much more to say about Iran and the way I believe it's going to be, or as we've talked about a little bit, it's going to be implicated based on what has happened this week. I think this has changed things in terms of the way Iran's going to be seen, and in terms of possibilities of cozying up to Iran. I'm not sure when it comes to, say, China and Russia and North Korea, but it's certainly with the West. We're going to get to that in the roundup after Farshad.
Yes.
But I should note that we talked a bit about, we had a much longer conversation, if anybody's interested, about this stuff on our bonus podcast on Monday. Now, we called it a bonus podcast because we haven't been doing shows on Mondays. We're going to do this. It was the roundup. It's the Monday is just the roundup, which featured such people as you and me. And we're going to do that on Mondays and perhaps invite some other folks in to be part of that roundup. And it'll be the bonus podcast for the next couple of Mondays. But starting in November, I want to mention that we are going to, now I think if people have been listening to this program, they know that we have a way that you can support us by becoming a Patreon member.
That's right.
If you're a Rook fan, if you like our content, if you support what we've been doing, if you've been following us for a while, if you've been happily a subscriber for free for all of this time, we are going to for the first time be creating content that you can only access if you are a Patreon member. Now, you can do that at the lowest tier of Patreon. And if you already are a Rook member on Patreon for $5 or more, you're going to get this content. So don't fear. This doesn't retroactively. You will. Everyone who is a Patreon member will get it. But these Monday podcasts that are going to be our roundup, they will be starting in November, available to Patreon members, and we hope this will become an incentive for some of you who've been kind of sitting there going, well, I don't really need to be a Rook member to support what's going on. I get the show anyway for free. If you want to hear the roundup and the special guests on it and all that, that'll be on Mondays. And we invite you to become a Patreon member. Now, how do you do that?
That you can do through our website, or simply by going to patreon.com and searching up Rook Media, and you can access all of our bonus content there.
So once again, if you go to our website, roqemedia.com, ROQE media.com, you can link to, first of all, you can link to all of our platforms there, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple, Instagram, CastBox, but you can also press the Support Us button. It'll take you to the Patreon page, and that's where you become a subscriber, and we love it when you do become a Rook member on Patreon. All right. Pegah, let's, our guest is ready in London, so we're going to come back and do the roundup on the other side of Farshad. Let's get to our feature guest. My feature guest today is a familiar, reassuring, and trusted face for those who regularly watch Persian media. He is an Iranian-British news anchor, producer, and presenter at Manoto TV. Farshad Mottaghi was born and raised in Rasht. He moved to Tehran at the age of 17 and pursued a degree in business management. At 23, he relocated to England and ended up working at an Iranian newspaper called Nimruz for 9 years. Since 2015, Farshad has been a prominent figure at Manoto TV, known for his presence as an anchor and an interviewer on such programs as Otaq Khabar and Reportage. And right now, Farshad Mottaghi joins me from London, England. Hello, sir.
Hi, Jian. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. I'm very happy to have you on the program. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
I'm a fan. When approaching this interview and preparing for it, a couple of people asked me if you can speak English, how your English is. And it occurred to me that it must be curious for you that you've been out of Iran for 3 decades and in the UK, but someone might ask, based on knowing you as a Persian anchor, whether you speak English. Does that make you chuckle?
To be honest with you, even for myself, it's sometimes hard to speak English because I've been working for Iranian media almost for 2 decades. So it's mainly I'm speaking Farsi. And also, it's just like all the friends, family. So it's mainly speaking Farsi. So it made it kind of difficult when you said it's going to be in English. I thought it's my first actually English interview. So it's a challenge.
I am honored. And as you've already made evident, your English is immaculate, as it ought to be, given how long you've been outside of Iran. But it is curious that you've spent more of your life outside of Iran than inside. And yet I know that you profoundly identify as Iranian first, yes?
Definitely. I'm been born and bred in Iran, and I moved to England when I was 23. So basically, part of me still is in Iran, even though right now I can't go back to Iran, but I'm really Iranian.
Farshad, you're also seen as a very serious guy. I mean, based on the impression you can give as a news reporter and as an anchor, you've privately sworn to me that you're not that serious. Do you find that being on TV is about giving an impression that is sometimes incongruent with reality? In other words, when an Iranian meets you, surely, and recognizes you, do they have an impression of you that surprises you sometimes?
Well, to be honest with you, in terms of being serious, because we're in news department, so when you're telling the news, it's not a joke. So you gotta just your face expression, your body language, everything has to be right. But as a person myself, to be honest with you, people see me and they get surprised. They think, "Oh, you got a sense of humor." I said, "Well, I'm a human, so I can be funny as well." But recently, we had a guest from Iran, and they came to our house for a dinner. And then after the night was over, the gentleman told me, "Oh my God, you're very funny. And we thought you're really miserable because you're always so serious." I thought, "No, I'm not miserable. It's just part of the job, So it depends what you're delivering to people,
Let me turn it around, perhaps, and ask you about seriousness. And before we get into your personal story and your career, I was watching you in the last few days and thinking about the situation of the world, which is a dire one, a particularly heartbreaking one when it comes to Israel and Gaza right now. Not that Iranians are immune to tragedy and atrocities, of course, especially even in the last year. But Farshad, does it take a different level of emotional strength to be anchoring during these times for you? Or is it, and I don't say this in a trite way, but is it another day at the office to a certain extent? Do you have to prepare yourself going in when you know you're talking about lives being lost in the way they are right now in the conflict in the Middle East?
100%. I think it's one of the toughest job when you got days like these, which is very hard, and emotion will kick in. So it's like today, for example, for instance, we've seen several videos from the scene that I can't even describe. And it made us all tearful, and that was just before we go for the live show. And you think, oh my God, I've got to deliver this. I have to read this script. And that is one of my nightmares when we have things like this comes up and you think millions of people are watching you and they count on you. So you got to, as a presenter, you got to have that skill to hold on to it. But many times happened to me, maybe 4 or 5 times, that I break into tears in front of the camera in the live program. And, so no, emotion kicks in and it's very difficult for me to control it.
I actually love the fact that you've been emotional at times on TV. It's part of the humanity that I think you bring to your broadcasting. But how do you then prepare for a day like today? Surely this morning, when you're going in to know that it's gonna, you know it's going to be a tough day. Is there a way you prepare yourself?
You try not to go too deep into the story because end of the day we're just presenting the thing. And sometimes even my colleague next to me reading the news, I try to just mime a song in my head and try to we play the VT in between our things. We go and watch like 3 minutes reports and we come back. Usually it's a sad news. Recently, I mean, for the last 12 months, I would say all the news is really about Iran, about the Zanzendagiyas and everything. It was too many sad VTs we had to go through. And I told the producer, please, can you close the voice on the floor so I can't hear it? Because once I hear it, then I won't be able to control. I mean, all of us, we're the same. That's one of the things, we just request not to listen. And I got a colleague, which she's fantastic. And she was been working on all the people being injured and killed since last year in the revolution in Iran was happening. And she comes and tells me, Farshad, did you watch my VT? I said, well, do you expect me to watch it and go and cry? So I'm going to watch it when I go home. So it's like, we try to make it not a joke, but it's like, try to put blind eyes and not to watch it while you're actually presenting the news. It's very hard.
But it's amazing. I mean, I know that you've done a lot of things in your life, but you have been an anchor for 8 years. You've been doing a bunch of different shows at Manoto. You've also been a reporter in the field. You've done that reportage show where you're going sometimes to conflict areas. It's interesting. I mean, maybe it's somewhat heartening that you are not somehow that hasn't drained the emotion out of you, to having seen all that you've seen, having done all that you've done day in, day out. You're still emotional. You're still those tears are still close for you, huh?
Yeah, I think it's your personality. I know people that they can deliver any news without even robot face, like really poker face, and they can do it. I can't do it. Personally, I'm a very sensitive person. If I see a kid's got disability or anything in the streets, it happens before to me. We walk into the supermarket with my wife. I see like a 2 years old in a pram, disabled, and I pull my wife's hand and say, come out, and start crying. I hug her and start crying. She says, what happened? Tell me what happened. I said, you see that kid? She said, oh, please don't look because you can't. It's me, you know what I mean? So, but some people can take it. They don't just go over it without even get affected. But for me, it's very difficult. I'm a very emotional person.
How do viewers react when you're emotional? Like those times when you've cried, what's the reaction you've received?
The first time that happened, for me, it was something new as well. It was my first time actually reporting about a 5 years old. It was I reporter, Gozarishkar. I was doing end of the show. And it was a 5 years old boy in Khiyabun Valiasr in Tehran. And he was actually selling like things. And it was 9 o'clock in the evening. The reporter was filming. It was a young lady. And she said, oh, he's only like 5 years old. And it's like -1 degree in Tehran, and he's just working for this, and I'm getting this for the گزارشگر Manoto. So I edited things and everything, and I thought I'm going to be okay. So what? And we see this a lot. And then once I was presenting it, I burst into it. I couldn't finish my sentence. And once we went to the VT to watch the actual video, because I give a little link, then we watched the report is being sent to us. And everybody came and hugged me and said, you got only 50 seconds, finish it off because you have to pick it up again. And I've done it. But next day, I mean, when they put on the social media in Manoto, it was a big impact. I was thinking people would say how unprofessional this presenter is that he couldn't hold his emotion. But it was exactly other way around. People loved it. They said, we are so glad to see somebody is not just a robot or poker face standing there and telling us things. So you take that to your heart, you feel what's happening there, and it's touch people's heart. And I thought that gave me actually a reputation that, you know, I'm a human as well. I'm not just a TV presenter that has got no emotion.
Yes. You've also not been... I mean, you've not been shy about your opinions at times, at least not, if not on the air, in your social media, in your, you know, your sort of public face outside of the being on TV. And you've made no bones about the fact that you're not a fan of the current regime in Iran. And you this week have been quite outspoken about your support for Israel, or at least your sorrow at the loss of Israeli lives this week. It's not something that we always see news anchors do or say in social media. There's that postulate of objectivity where they're not supposed to show any sort of opinion on any kind of side. What kind of rules do you have around this, either personally or with Manoto?
Well, with Manoto, basically, because we are not a commentator, we are not politicians, so we just tell the news without taking anybody's side. We just tell the news what is happening. So that is our duty, and we deliver that. But when it comes to my personal page in Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or whatever, I think I've got a duty as a human to shout out and let people know, because I don't support any country. I can't say I'm a pro-Israeli or pro-Palestinian. I think I'm about humanity. So if I see somebody's being bullied, doesn't matter, is a person, is a country, or is a group. So I think if I can do something, if I can be their voice, I will be that. Okay, maybe I don't have a big amount of followers on my social media, but the people are following me, they believe me, and they respect me, and I share my opinion with them, and that might change some people's vision as well. Do you know what I mean?
So nobody upbraids you or calls you in the office and says, "Hey, settle down. Don't take any sides. Don't say anything in your Instagram. You know, we're supposed to be objective here." You don't get any of that from the network.
No, because it's my personal page, and I know Manoto follows me, but end of the day, no. Even for the Manoto shows, I mean, nobody tells you what you're putting up or come and check to what you're writing. So because they trust you, they know you know your job. It's not like second person going to come and check it. So it's like you go, you deliver what you have to deliver, and everyone's happy. If something goes wrong, they will call you in, obviously, but usually doesn't.
Do you get pushback from followers? I mean, surely there's if somebody's a huge supporter of the Palestinian cause, and they see you showing your sorrow for Israel, and they say, "Hey, you're a news anchor. You shouldn't be taking a position." Do you get that kind of stuff?
To be honest, no. I get like direct, sometimes, not a lot, but I get direct message from people that they will tell their opinions. So no, you are wrong. This is that. It's not like why you are a news anchor, why you giving your opinion. But they would just disagree or agree or whatever. But no, not really. I don't think people really care much if I'm a news anchor or whatever. But
really? And even yourself, like before you post something like that, you don't think about it and go, what if this pisses off some people? What if I'm, I mean, it's quite from the heart, I guess. You just put out what you feel.
Yes. Do you know something? I think I should have that freedom when it's my free time and it's my own page, it's my private page. So I should have that freedom of speech, so I could say what I think. When it comes to Iranian, they're my, hamvatan. So I have a duty. So I have to shout out. I will feel myself. I'm in Iran, so they don't have no voice. Nobody can hear them or as much. So I got a duty to do that, and I won't hesitate.
Right, right. But I guess somebody at I don't know. I was going to say BBC Persian, but let's say some place would say, if an anchor says this, I hate what Khamenei is doing, then somebody can turn around and say, well, when this guy does the news, he's biased because we already know he's against Khamenei, right?
Well, because if you watch the news, which we deliver in, you will see that we are not taking part. So we're just telling the news. That's my job aside. But then I come home,
Gotcha.
see, and I cannot control sometimes I get so frustrated, I get so angry. And then I just put a story or the post, and nobody will, at Manoto, nobody will tell you. Well, I mean, it's my private page.
I think nobody would disagree with you. It's at least on the last opinion I cited at Manoto or at any other Persian network, perhaps. Tell me about you're a kid from Rasht. Would Farshad, as a little kid growing up in Rasht, would anyone imagine you're going to become a famous TV news star?
And no, I don't think so. To be honest with you, when I was little, when I started going to school and then I start secondary school, اول راهنمایی, then teachers come speak to you, and they always used to ask me after that because when the teacher comes into class, new chapter, they will ask one of the students to read the book for that chapter. So I was the only one. They will always say, I don't know, it was my tone of my voice or something, but they always liked it. So I had that in secondary school and in high school. But I never thought about it, that maybe one day that would be useful for me. But no, I was never thinking about that,
What did you think? I mean, I know you, as a teenager, you moved to Tehran. In your mind's eye, what were you going to do in your life?
To be honest with you, at the time, because there was a war going on between Iran and Iraq, because I was 10 years old when the revolution happened. So it was all these plava happening. You see this, and it was too much for a 10 years old. I could remember the tear gas. I could see the people chanting outside. It was like too much going on. Then after that, the war happened, and then we go to the high school and stuff, and you're thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? I have to go to do my duty as well, because you have to do your national service for 2 years in Iran. And I see, like, my brother was 5 years older than me, and two of his friends been killed in a war, and I saw the pictures accidentally, which they were torn to pieces, and it was really the things I saw, and I thought, okay, that could be me. So you're always worried about tomorrow, what's going to happen. Then we had like airstrike from Iraq, Mushak Baran, this and that. So you've always been worried about your life. So we were not thinking about what am I going to do next year? What's my plan for future? Am I going to be a successful person? There was no time to think about this stuff. You were just thinking, am I going to survive tomorrow? Wow. Am I going to be alive? So we wouldn't count on tomorrow, to be honest with you.
Actually, let me just roll back for a second to something you were just saying about being 10 years old at the revolution time. That is the Islamic Revolution, the 78, 79. I'm always actually, it's a little personal fascination I have with Generation Xers and the Iranian Revolution, in terms of at least Iranian Gen Xers, because if you're 2 years old during the revolution, you don't know what's going on, and you later on you find out and you process how you wish to, as something that happened in history. And if you're 20 years old or 25 years old, you've already sort of developed some sense of self and consciousness and ideology and political wit or whatever. Of course, that can change. Many people supported the revolution and then realized, we made a mistake 10 years or 20 years or 30 years later. But you have that sense of it. When you're 10, you're old enough to know what's going on. In other words, you see that there's people with guns in the streets, there's mobs, there's anger, the Shah is no longer there. But you're a little too young to really know what's going on. What was the revolution like for Farshad Mottaghi?
It was scary. To be honest, you hear the gunshot, you hear people out there, the fire, smell of the smoke, they're burning tires. That's what I remember. I remember one day, the street we live in near to Golsar, which is a famous area. I went to buy bread or something, I don't remember. And then I saw all these soldiers standing up it was a winter, so they were wearing all these long coats with the GSE, the gun in their hand. And then people came and put like a little flower on top of the things, and they were just standing there. So that's stuck in my mind. I always remember that. But I've never seen actually people killing each other. Okay, even my brother almost got shot in. He was only 15. He was a little kid, but he was out there. I was 10. But it was scary too. I didn't want to go out, to be honest with you.
Did you think something bad was happening at the time? What was the feeling? Was it?
Uh, I had no sense of anything those days because I would understand. But I remember my dad would couple of times I saw him crying, and then when he was listening to the news, and then my uncle tell him, "Look, what's up? What's wrong with you?" He said, "People are making big mistake because what they're doing. If Shahs leave, we don't know what our future is going to be." So he was pro Shah, and he was. I saw his tear coming down, crying to me. So that was something that I thought, so probably he's a good person, but why they getting rid of him? But I wouldn't think too much because I was too young. That sense of a fear, and at the same time, you're a kid, you don't understand. So
yeah. You served in the Iran-Iraq War, right?
I did, yes.
What was that like for you?
Again, scary because when I start my army, it was Iranian year was 66 and I finished 68. That's the Iranian year. 1366 started and finished 68. And that was the first year was end of the war, and the second year it was the peace was made.
Right.
So I did my 7 months of my duty in Ahvaz, and when Mersad operation happened, which Mujahideen attacked Iran, they called us to be ready to go for the front line and stuff like this, and it was very scary, to be honest with you. You feel the bitterness in your mouth, all the fear you have, and you're thinking, you see your friends got killed day before in a front line, and you think, oh my God, I'm going to be next. So
Yeah.
it was full of stress, to be honest with you. And I could never imagine that's going to be over. I was thought, I'm going to die. I'm not going to finish my army here. It's going to be end of it.
It's pretty normalized for Iranians who grew up in Iran because Sarbazi is something that you do. You're asked to do. You're conscripted to do. But for those of us who grew up outside of Iran, or left Iran as little kids or something, it's a really crazy. I can't imagine in Canada, conscription would be, it's not something that's very foreign to us. In your case, did it change you somehow?
It's hard to say. I think so many reaction you do now, it comes back from there. I'm quite short temper, and sometimes my wife tells me when you drive, you have a bit of a road rage. It's not because I'm a very kind person, but sometimes I just, for a second, I lose my focus. It's just like, and I'm thinking this comes back from all that stress and the nervousness we had to go through, all that fears. So sometimes you try to control it, but I think some of the weakness you have now, I have, maybe comes from those time. But I can't pinpoint, say, no, because of that, I've been like this. So but it was a very tough time.
Do you have shell shock? I have a cousin who's exactly your age who when he hears a loud bang, it reminds him of the wartime, in Iran.
Yes. Listen, if I'm sleeping at night, if somebody buzzed the door, I would just jump like a James Bond. I would hit here and there. My wife said, "What's wrong with you?" It was just a door. But I said, "No, somebody's there." She said, "Okay, you're going to open the door." If my phone rings, I would jump, look left and right. I would be like I think I'm worried about something. That happens to me all the time. Any loud noise, I would jump. So
in your early 20s, you leave to go to England. And I love the story of you going to England. Because some guys leave, some people leave because they are deeply unhappy with Iran. Some leave because they don't think they have the opportunities in Iran. Some are encouraged by their families to go study. Some because they have a job in another country. Some leave as refugees. You left because you loved a girl, right?
That's right. Yeah. Okay. The story is that we were a girlfriend boyfriend for like 3 years, and my wife's half Iranian, half British. So she used to come and go. Her mom's was in England, dad's in Iran. So summer in England, school time go back. But she came to Iran when she was 12, so she has to go like an international school to learn the Farsi and stuff.
Where did you meet her?
We are relative, like really far distance relative, and they came to our house one day, and we were living in Rash. They were in Tehran. Her dad was a admiral. He was a captain for the Iranian Navy. He was a naval officer. they came from Tehran to visit us, and so we become like friends. And that time I think I was 16, 17, maybe yeah, I was about 17 and she was about 13, 14. So I tried to impress her, so it was I was doing anything I could do. But yeah, it built it up. After a few years, we got married, and that's how I came to England. But there is another story about this.
Wait a second. You got married in Iran, right?
Yes, I got married in
And
Iran.
then she says, "I want to go to England," and
No, it wasn't the case. But my father-in-law said, okay, so now you got married, you can take advantage because she's got a British passport, you go to England. I said, no, I'm not going to England. That wasn't the case because I love Iran. I got my friends, my family. I'm a Shaytun, got my friends, my family. I know the way. I speak the language. I go to England. I don't speak English. It's difficult for me. So I would rather not. He said, listen, you're not going to lose anything. Go for 3 months. I said, but I'm not interested. So it was like they push and pull. They manager. He said, oh, just go for 3 months. If you're not happy, come back. I came to England. I hated it instantly because it wasn't something I was expecting. And I was keep moaning and groaning. I want to go back. But, so we stayed. After a couple of years, I got used to it. And now I love it, obviously. But Iran is part of me. It's part of Farshad. So when you speak, I see Iranian in the street. I respect them so much. I put my time for them, speak to them, and it's like world to me.
But that's amazing. That you're saying basically, were it not for your wife, you would have stayed in Iran.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
The 80s and 90s Iran is not a pleasant place, but you land in England and you don't like it. What didn't you like about it?
To be honest with you, it was because I were not used to the culture. I couldn't speak the language. I didn't know the roads. Everything. The food was like everything. The weather, gloomy, drizzling every day, raining. So it was like Tehran was like 40 degree, 35 degree. Here we're getting like 15 degree for the summer day. I thought, what is this? You can't go to the seaside. You have a sea, but you can't go to the seaside. All the buildings like old and boring. And I'm thinking, what am I in the narrow roads, traffic, one car have to stop for the other one to come. I said, Tehran was great,
Right.
So, and all the crowds you have, it's fun, parties, this and that, but it was like completely different lifestyle, completely different.
What a stunning indictment of London. I was born in London. It's my home country.
I didn't know that.
Yes. You've done quite a hatchet job on it now. Poor England. But I know you like it now. I
love it. I love it now. But still, Iran is my country. I can never change that with any other country.
But what I love about the story too is that it continues. You and your wife are still together, right? It's been over 30 years you guys are together.
Yeah, we've been married for 30 years and we were friends for 3-4 years before that. So we were together almost 34 years.
And what is the secret of you guys, your longevity together?
I think she's too nice. Maybe I will give the credit to her because she's the nicest person I've met in my life.
Apparently she can handle your road rage. So that's one thing.
I don't have a road rage. No, don't get me wrong. It's like I'm a bit of a bad temper when I'm driving. And if I have a long day, don't forget, Jian, I have to drive to work for an hour and a half. And then come back
on the narrow street where there's no seaside you can visit at 15 degrees.
Yeah, no sun shining. So
she's a nice person. I think that's a very modest answer. I think it takes for people to move to the other side of the world. You've changed occupations a few times. You guys, you must have a tremendous partnership.
Yes, we do. We got very strong bond and we understand each other. You always have ups and downs in your life. Nothing's going to be like smooth. 30 years is not a joke, 34 years. But no, we love each other, we respect each other, and we hear each other. Do you know what I mean? That's most important, to listen to your partner, see what they need is,
Your entree, as I understand it, into media, into journalism, into the kind of work that you do now, was working for this newspaper called Nimruz. And you got that gig because you had a good facility for typing. Why is it that you were so good at typing?
Okay, again, it's a long story because when, as I said, we were in Iran, we were always thinking of tomorrow, how am I going to survive? So my mom came one day before I go to do my national service, my duty. She said, this next door neighbors, he was a dentist we had in Rasht, and he said his nephew when he was going to doing his duty, he went and learned typing. So I'm going to send you to learn. And I was like, oh, 17 years old. I said, no, don't even think about it. I'm not going to go learn typing. Typing is for ladies. I'm not going to do that. She said, no, listen, it's going to be just like about 2 weeks course you do. I'll pay for it. So she forced me into that. And I learned that. And that actually helped me, because when I went to do my army, that was part of my job, doing the admin work and doing the typing. It made me very fast typist. And when I came to England, that's how I find the journalism work, because that newspaper needed a typist. So I started with that and I carry on. So I stayed almost 10 years in Nimruz and ended up with page layout, editing, things like this. And it put me in that direction. Then they actually started at satellite TV and nominated me as a news anchor. And I was, they done a camera test, and they thought, you're fantastic, you got a good voice, so we're going to use you as a newsreader. And I thought, well, that's good. But come close to the date, I spoke to my mom. I said, I'm going to start this. And then she said, is this TV is like a politically? I said, yeah. She said, no, you're not doing that, because I want you to come and go. And if you start that, then you can't come back. So I went back next day, and I told the editor-in-chief, I told her, look, I changed my mind. She said, what are you talking about? Next week we're starting the show. We counted on you. I said, well, my mom said, no, I can't come. And then we had Khanum Fakhriye Nikzad, we lost her last year. She passed away. And she was one of the most famous Iranian radio and TV presenter in Iran. I'm sure all people know in Iran. And they employed her to come and do the news. But I had my camera test and everything, but I said, no, I'm not going to do it. So that was actually beginning of the things which I got involved. But then, yeah, there's more story about it.
How do you feel about that in retrospect? I mean, do you wish you had taken that job then, or is it almost better that you didn't?
It was good that I didn't take the job, because after 2 months, because of the financial issue they had to shut down, so they couldn't maintain. So if I would go in that TV for only 2 months, then I would lose the opportunity, because I had a British passport, go and come to Iran. I had no problem. Even though I wouldn't go every year, maybe every 4 or 5 years, I would go to Iran to see the family, or the family would come to see us. But yeah, I was happy that I didn't take that.
By the way, is your dear mom still around?
She passed away last year.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Actually, this year, this March. And and actually, my sister sent me a video like a couple of years ago, because just a few years before she passed away, she's had Alzheimer's.
Yes.
And she would recognize me. And so I had a clip of her, which once she passed away, I put it on my social media, and it went viral. So everybody was saying, tasliyat and everything. And that she's sitting down in front of the TV, watching me reading the news, and is talking to me, smiling, thinking, because she couldn't think straight. She think I'm there. And then she turns back to my sister and saying, Rashti, he just ignored me. He's not responding. Why is he like this? And when I saw that, I couldn't stop crying for like a couple of days. And that was a couple of years before she passed away. But I put that on my social media, and it was I wanted people to see the things we have to bear, because we are just the news.
Yeah, I've seen it on your Instagram, and it's a very powerful and heartbreaking clip, actually, and it's beautiful that you put it up. But it occurs to me that she had a tremendous impact on you. I mean, even in this conversation alone, your mother's influence is throughout, from you being a typist to don't take this job. I mean, sounds like you really listened to her throughout the years.
Of course. I mean, still, I walk around in the house, I say things in Rashti, when she would say, because when she would speak Farsi, she had the Rashti accent, and then me and my sister always laugh and just giggle and stuff. So my wife said, now you talk about your mom more than when she was alive. And I said, look, this is how I will remember her, always the things which was nice about her and everything. And she's part of me, I'm part of her. So it's very hard to forget that.
I'm not entirely sure I know what the Rashti accent is. Can you do something say something in Persian in a Tehran accent, and then do the Rashti version?
You mean, do you want me to speak Rashti? Or
I want to hear. Oh, is Rashti not Farsi?
Well, it is. Yeah, of course.
It's a dialect, right? I want to hear it.
Basically, it's a Gilaki. Do you have anybody Gilak in around you or not?
Yes, actually, but I don't know. But I'm trying to think right now what it sounds like. I do it for me. Do it. I get half me saying what's this?
الان حرف زن داریم ولی چیزی که خواستیم بگم اینه که میدیل خیلی مارل سنگا بسته خیلی 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 آسان نیه وقتی که این نفر رشتی نیه بخوای صحبت بکنی رشتی خیلی سخته الان شما اگه رشتی ببینیشی میام راحت نی صحبت بکنی ولی الان نه
It's like you keep your mouth. It's not as you don't open your mouth as much or something.
I haven't spoken Rashti for such a quite a long time because I don't have any Gilak around me, so it's kind of hard. Maybe
That was fantastic. I enjoyed it. Tell me, now you go and you end up working for a telecommunications company. You end up doing a few things, and then the big shift that happens in your life that would affect most people who have come to know you through Manoto is this moment 8 years ago where you start working at Manoto, and it's curious to me because I'm going to ask you this question at the end about what people have always told you in terms of their expectations of what you could do in life. But you know, to look at you, if I were to, and in fact, I mean, I think the first times I saw you on Manoto, I would just assume you've been doing that for decades. Like you are. That you're an anchor who knew at the age of 8 he was going to be an anchor and just started, went in that direction. And because it's so comfortable in you, it's actually quite remarkable to me that formally, like in terms of this being your profession, it's been less than a decade. And in 2015, you really didn't have that much experience when you're thrown into one of the major Iranian TV networks to be a news anchor. I know your wife encouraged you to respond to an ad or something, but how did you have the confidence to know that you could jump into that role?
Okay, it wasn't too difficult for me because I'm a very sociable person, okay? And to me, working in that telecommunication company for almost 11 years, because I had to do lots of meeting, seeing people, facing customers on the phone or whatever, that's actually built my confidence to a level that I could speak in front of 100 people without being shy. So I know some people make it uncomfortable, and I think it's in you. It's not something that you want to copy or you want to pretend. So I'm kind of, it's my character. If we have a guest, I think I took it after my dad maybe because he was very kind of the same, So it's like I'm a very talkative person, so I think I'm not sure if I was confident enough, but I'm a very comfortable person. I'm a people's person. I could put you this way: I'm a people's person. I love talking to people and hang out and socializing.
That's clear. That's clear, actually, from more so when I see you in the field. But did you audition? Did you have to do an audition?
Yes. We had to do camera tests and also interview. And the audition was remembering a page of, like, they gave me an English article. They said you had a few minutes to read this, memorize, and then come and talk about it in front of camera in Farsi. So I thought, oh my God, so how much is it? Got 5 minutes. So I done it, and they apparently was happy with it. And then they came back to me for the interview, and they said, we think you're going to be great for the news reporting. So that's how it started.
And did you think that when you went and auditioned, is that what you expected, that you were going to go straight into news? Or did you think, because Manoto does a lot of different cultural programming and entertainment. What did you think you were auditioning for?
Actually was asked which department you want to work in. I said, look, to me, it doesn't make any difference. Anything you give me, I can deliver. So it's like, and they said, look, because you are kind of older than other, at the time I was 46, 47 years old. And they told me because you have that things which is nice and settled for doing the news. And I thought, okay, that's fine. So that's how I started it.
What was your first time on air?
I think it was after maybe, if I'm not wrong, maybe after 10 days I start working. And then they said, yeah, you got to go live. And it was like, it was nerve-wracking. I was telling them, you are so brave. You guys going live. And I've never done this before. But luckily, I never messed it up. So it was quite kind of, it was nerve-wracking, I would say. Especially when they count in your ear from the gallery 10, 9, and you think, oh my God, now 30 million people are watching you, or millions of people are watching you at
Yeah.
the same time. Any mistake you make, you're going to be like, you made a mistake. So
Yeah. There's a famous uh did you ever see the movie Broadcast News?
I know I didn't.
It's a fabulous movie, but there's a moment where the guy who's been the producer all his life, has always wanted to be on the air, and he finally gets on the air, and they go live, and he's sweating so badly that his shirt and his jacket and everything start show the stains of the sweat. It's a really, I mean, having done a lot of live broadcasting myself, it's a different thing from taping an interview or doing. It's a really jacked up kind of energy, especially when you're aware that there's a lot of people watching you and oftentimes judging you for a lot of things that have nothing to do with actually the content of what you're saying. They're looking at your hair or the way your body is standing or what clothing you're wearing, or so it can be quite nerve-wracking.
It is. I mean, we get comments like for the tie you wear, pocket skirt you got in your pocket, your hair, what hair product you use. They just talk about everything, and that's so nice. That's how much they pay attention to the detail. And also, anything goes wrong, it's on your neck. You know what I mean? Gallery can go wrong, technical issues, and people think, "Oh, Savode, he cannot do this. He doesn't know what he's talking about." Or auto cue jump out. All of a sudden, you're thinking it's a 1 hour news. I cannot memorize 1 hour, so I need that auto cue. I need the auto prompter. But sometimes things happen, and then that depends on your skill, how you manage to actually handle it. But it's not an easy job, I would say.
Can I mean, I hate to descend into superficiality here, but you are known for your fabulous hair. And and can I ask you, I mean, I think I saw you saying somewhere that the gray hair, the white hair, it happened quite early in life for you, yes?
Yes. When I was 16 years old, my father had a car accident, and after 9 days, he passed away. So I was only turned 16. And after about a month, I saw a white hair, middle of my head, then few at the sides. I was only like not even 17 years old. So I think emotionally, it really affected me. And because we had nobody with gray hair in my family. And when I was 20, 21, when I went to do my army, I had like few white at the sides. And then when I was getting married, I had like 30% white hair when I was only 23, 24. And then increased every time. So, but I'm happy that I didn't lost the hair. It's gone gray.
No, you haven't lost it at all. But I mean, I'm sure somebody's done the analogy with Anderson Cooper with you, right? Because of CNN, because he quite famously in his 30s already had the gray hair and was rocking it. I mean, nobody ever came to you at the beginning of Manoto or something and said, why don't you color this brown or change it or something like that?
Actually, no, not in Manoto, but I had so many people directed or leaving comment under the Instagram page. Oh, Farshad, why don't you color your hair? It's way better with the darker hair. And I thought, no, that's not going to look good, So they're always insisting. Or some of the family back in Iran, relatives, they said, why don't you color your hair? You look like 10 years younger. I said, I don't want to look younger. I'm happy with what I have at the moment.
But it would be totally awesome if you just turned up on Manoto all of a sudden, like one day with like jet black hair that you've dyed.
Yeah, exactly. To be honest with you, in my lifetime, I've done it once. We went for holiday to Iran. I think it was 30 years old. And we went to Kerman to my wife's, one of the uncle's house for a couple of days. And his lovely wife said, okay, Farshad, why don't you color your hair? Let's dye your hair. I said, well, okay then. So we dyed, and it was really nice. I had like nice short hair, and it was good. After 3 days, all the red coming out from I said, this is my last time I actually would dye my hair. So that was the last time. I've never done it again. I shaved my hair to look like even because,
Well, you're very handsome. Everybody calls you handsome, and you really, I mean, you've been considered good looking, I would imagine, since you were probably a popular guy in your teenage years, right?
Well, that you have to ask my wife. I think that's one of the reasons.
I'm asking you. I'm asking you, and I think you can be honest about it.
Okay, I'm going to be moderate, but I think I was okay. I was all right, and I think she fell in love with my looks. I managed to fool her, saying, look how good looking I am. She always had issues. Said you take too much to fix your hair because those days I used to have mullets, back long, and then we had these, all
Oh, you had sideburns?
No sidemen. You call them mullets.
Oh,
Don't
mullet.
you?
You had long in the back and
And the front. Do you remember what was that singer's name? Paul Young.
yes, of course.
Maybe it's not your time. So it was the same hairstyle. It was very popular in Iran. So if you have that, then you will be. And it was very hard to manage to do that. You had lots of hairspray and stuff. And obviously, I had to look perfect. So I was always, and so she fell in love with my hair as well, actually.
Well, yeah, that's why you still, you've got the nice gel in there. I mean, you still take care of it. Clearly, you have to keep your wife happy. Farshad, let me ask you about the last. I guess to get a little more serious about your job and what you've had to do in the last year. It occurs to me as an outsider. I mean, I know some of this by knowing you guys and knowing Kayvon, Abbasi, and others, but it occurs to me that Manoto had to, as a product of events in around the world, and it wasn't the only network that had to do this, had to pivot somewhat last year after the killing of Mahsa Amini and the desperate outrage of Iranians inside Iran and around the world, and the global outrage, in fact, and the programming shifted. Tell me what that was like, and how you had to manage the last year, and what must have been a kind of a change at Manoto in terms of having to change the tone and deal with some really serious shit going on in Iran.
Definitely, because what happened in Iran, it was so serious that whole plan in Manoto changed. One of the beauty with Manoto is, I think anything happens. I mean, COVID happened, different things happened. Very quickly, they managed to shift and direct the company in a way that it will do better than before. I mean, during the COVID, so many other companies, they got bankrupt or the program got affected if there were TV channels and stuff. But Manoto managed to produce more program and maintain the good shop, because they said people at home now, it's lockdown and people need more programs. So it was more pressure on people. I mean, working with Manoto, working from home, give them the facility to work from home, but they will always come up with an idea that to be updated for that moment. And the same thing was for Khizesh Zan Zendegi Azadi. That happens. So whole focus of the company went onto this scenario. And when that went down, I think so many other companies tried to go back to normal. But for Manoto, we thought this will be normalizing. Like, okay, people died, they got shot, they got blind, they got tortured, they got raped. It's finished now, it's done. But with Manoto, we said, no, this is not going to happen. So we cannot have for Nowruz concerts and people come and dance and stuff.
Yeah.
We have to remember that, because so many family, they lost their loved one. So we had a duty to remember them. It's so easy because people get fed up. They say, oh, we had enough with this news, we know all about it, so let's stop doing that. But Manoto maintained that for those people who lost their life, their eyesight, their life, everything, and try to remember them and keep the flair on. Do you know what I mean? So I think that was one of the good things. And what happened with Manoto, mainly we switched into the news, basically. So the entertainment part kind of gone for now.
Did that put more, pressure or emphasis on you?
I can't say more pressure, because for us, we are professional. Okay, so it's a job. Do things happen like this? I mean, during the Khizesh, for the first 3 weeks, I didn't take a day off. And I was willing to do that. It wasn't that I was asked. Well, they needed people because we had 3-4 live show every day. 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So everything was live. It wasn't that repeat. And we were, all of us, not just me, we were all working around the clock. We start at 10 o'clock, finish, got home by 12 o'clock midnight. I didn't see my children and my family for 3 weeks. I would come home, everybody's sleeping. I wake up, everybody's gone. So, but I wouldn't mind. I would rather to do that another 6 months, but see positive things happen in Iran, which will happen eventually.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. I mean, one of the things we've talked about a lot on this show, and you may know that, is the Uprising. And there was a moment, I would say, somewhere in October and November of last year, I guess about a year ago now, where there was a real sense of, and perhaps it was misled, perhaps it was premature, perhaps it was naive, but you felt a real sense across the Iranian global population of not just unity for a beautiful and maybe fleeting moment, but also an expectation that change was really coming and maybe coming soon. Did you feel that at that time too, or was the fact that you're kind of at the center of things, knowing what's going on in Iran more so and what was happening on the ground, did you stay sort of more realistic, if you will, about things?
I think what happened in Iran here, the people, they were united. I mean, in UK, other countries, it was fantastic to begin with. But after a while, what happened, you see like different opinion, people wanting to do their own things and they want to get what they want to. To me, it was, I was heartbroken to see that there's too many different positions coming and they're not thinking about people in Iran, because to me, most important is what people are saying in the street of Iran. Mm-hmm. So what they want to do, because who am I or anybody like me to make decision for them or say, no, we have to do this, no, we have to do that. No, you don't do nothing. You've been here 45 years as the opposition or whatever, or TV channel, whatever you're doing, and you haven't done bugger all. You didn't do anything. Now it comes, people came to the street. Now you're making for them, telling them what to do. Mm. So that actually, it ruined everything, I think, because there were so many disagreements between the people and groups, which I was actually witnessing in London street here myself, because the day was all the demonstration happening in London. It was Saturday, which I work. And a couple of days I had off on Saturday, which was a big demonstration happened. I went with my daughter and we were like, it was heavy rain coming. It was lots of Iranian, but we joined in and I thought we have to be part of it. I've been there several times. It was fantastic and the vibe was so good, but eventually it changed, to be honest. So
when you talk about dictating what the future is going to be, et cetera, are you talking about the Manchur? Is that the part where you really think things fell apart?
To be honest with you, no, I don't think there was anything wrong with the Manchur. I think what happened in that Manchur, I mean, when people sat next to each other and people knew who they're going to deal with, some people didn't want to play the part. I don't want to go too much into the detail.
Sure.
I'm not a politician, but I don't think that was the reason. I think it was just people planning things in their heads for future, which is not what people thinking in Iran. I think that was the reason. And that's what I think, if something needs to happen, it has to happen in Iran, not in here. And we can just be the voice if we can. Otherwise, no, I would rather not to comment on that at all, to be honest.
You're in such an interesting position when you're, I would say this if you're working at Iran International too. I want those two channels in particular, where you're broadcasting, you're in London, but your audience is inside Iran. And despite the fact that you're not inside Iran, you have to show, you have to win their trust and earn their connection, you know. You have to keep in touch with what's happening in Iran in a very profound way. You're the face for them, right? And one of the things that Manoto has become famous for, certainly over the last year with the Uprising, was playing clips of citizen journalism, or people were sending videos that you guys would then play on Manoto. And I didn't know that. I mean, I knew you did this iReporter thing, but I didn't know that you're actually one of the people who collects these videos and has to go through them. And it would give you a tremendous insight into what, I mean, you've probably seen things that you can't show us, you know, that you wouldn't put on the air, etc. Tell me what you learned about the Iranian people in 2022, 2023 through these videos that have been sent and that you curate and put on iReporter.
I can't say surprised me, because Iranian always very smart, but what happened in Iran, it showed that people are so united in Iran. That's what something people thought it would be issue, and also they can see everything and they can analyze everything. And the way they send the report to us, I mean, when sometimes I see, I get like, wow, they pointing at things that I never thought about it. Any subject you will think, we will get reports from Iran's street every day. So I have that sort of a connection, which is like day to day. I'm in touch with them. They send the reports. I have to watch them all, choose some. And the most difficult part in that segment is that to which one to choose, because there's so many good clip comes, and you're thinking if you don't show them, so it's going to get wasted. And that person risked his life. He could go to prison maybe for sending me that video, but he's done it. You know, he sent it to us. And I always have an argument with the producer of the news, and I tell them, look, I've got like only 13 minutes I report. They said, no, the I report shouldn't be more than 7 minutes. So I always try to squeeze as much reports, because we have to do everything from scratch. I have to go through all of them. I have to choose them. I have to fact check them to make sure it's correct, and also edit them, shorten them as much as possible without changing any concept or anything like that.
How do you decide? How do you decide what you're going to run?
Okay, every day we have a subject of the news, what's happening. So anything related to the daily news, we will usually choose. So it will support. And don't forget, it's not only we showing I report Gozarishkar, is we use it for the VTs in the news, the reports. So it gets used all different parts of news nowadays, because we are doing more news, not entertainment. Even the other department like Manoto Plus and then Manoto Live, they do between the shows. So we have so many live shows happening, which we never had it before. So this change happened. So they show this iReporter as well. So it's getting played on different departments, in Saluma's program, in different programs. So it's get air. So people's voice can be here more than before. It touches your hearts. You know, you think, oh my God, people actually in Iran trust us so much. So we have a duty to be their voice.
It's a tremendous responsibility, because depending on, I mean, some of these videos can and have changed the narrative on that particular day, or for a week, or for more. And I've got to imagine that you receive, like I intimated before, you probably receive all kinds of different stuff, and including things that you're not sure if you should air, that would have a tremendous impact if you did, right?
That's right. Yeah. It's so many times you get reports that they're very graphic, you cannot show, or the things they say, they're very Roqe, as you know. So they will just tell their opinion, so it's not possible to air that. So they have to put beep on it. You know, it's just like you have to play around with it. But it's amazing amount of the reports we get from Iran. It's unbelievable, and that shows that people need some places that they can trust, that they're going to, echo their voice so everybody can hear them.
It's also back to the emotional nature of what you have to do. That's a freaking tough gig there, buddy. Like you have to sit and sift through, and you can't take the day off and say, no, I'm not going to look at these videos today. Sift through this stuff that's coming at you that has got to be not just powerful and in some cases inspirational, but on the opposite hand, devastating, disgusting, deflating. How do you cope with that?
It happens many times. Once I'm editing and watching these videos, I burst into tears. Nobody realizes, because I'm just working and just crying. The other night, sometimes you get emotional, not because it's a feeling of maybe happiness that your people get everything so perfectly, so right, and the way they're changing, everything is shifting for people. I mean, for instance, last year when it was Tasu Ashura, this old Azadari they do for Muharram, it was the first year that we received so many videos that people are saying they really believe Islam, so they're very into it, but they don't believe the government. So they're saying, if we're going and doing this Azadari mourning, it's not because we love the government. We're doing this because we're Muslim. So they completely shifted. So I was editing this video whole day, and some of them I just start crying. It was like I couldn't believe that people are that wise and understand every aspect of what they're doing. And then one of the colleagues saw me. I'm sure you've seen Omidayem, and then they said, "No, we saw you that you were really touched by video." I said, "Yeah, so come tonight to the Omidayem. We want to take you there." So I went to that program, and people were calling in, And it was the same scenario. They were saying, look, we are one of the people. I mean, some of them they called and they said, we organized this Azadaris. And this year we're not doing it because of the Khizashe Mahsa Amini and the people being killed. So we don't believe that. So it had a big impact. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's these things you see and it really touches your heart. You know, it's very emotional.
I mean, that is a very, very tough gig that you have when you do that. It is such a real honor to get to talk to you. I've been looking forward to it. Before I let you go, you know, I wasn't sure if I was going to ask anything about your dad. I know you lost him when you were very young, and you talked about the hair going white. I mean, that's got to be a suggestion of the anxiety or the difficulties you went through after losing your dad as a teenager. What can you say about him, and what would he think of how far Farshad Mottaghi has come today?
I think he would have been proud of me. And he was very much like myself, I would say. He was like very talkative, very kind to people and trying to be like, you know, he was a people's person as well. And I think maybe seeing me right now, that to see amount of attention we're getting from people and the trust, not only attention, is just like how much people trust you. I think that's something I wish for my children to be the same. Do you know what I mean? To be able to, I'm not saying I'm making changes, but that as long as people trust you and you have that respect and that reputation, that I think that's a lot, because gaining such a trust amongst people, that is not easy.
You know, there's people that you look at and you go, that person was meant to do that. I know in a previous conversation, you told me that everybody's always told you have the goods to be a news anchor. You've got the charm, you've got the voice, you're a smart guy, you're a handsome guy. And now you are a news anchor. That's what you do. Do you feel like you're, to a certain extent, you're doing what you were always meant to do?
I think so. I think my wife was asking me actually about a couple of weeks ago. He said, if you would say what's the best time of your life, which part would you say? I said, when I saw you and we were like friends before. And that was honest, true answer. I said, and then he said, what else? I said, right now. I said, where I'm standing right now, it's something I would never think of, that one day I will be in such a position. And to be able to do something, I see this not as a job, Jian. I see this as an opportunity to take a step for my people. I'm not doing anything special, but you know what I mean? So if people trust me and see me as somebody who is, you know, for them, it's hard to say. I went to Turkey a couple of months ago for a holiday, summer holiday, with my wife and family. And I come across with so many Iranian in that hotel we were. And to me, that holiday became the most amazing holiday. The feedback I had from these people, every day I wanted to sit down and cry, because I saw more than 100 families in that time, and every single one of them came to me. They know me by name, by my family name, and they start hugging me, taking picture. And I was because I didn't know how much fan we have. I mean, people how much know us, and to me, and they saw that I saw them, that how much they trust me, how much they respect me. And to me, that was like an eye-opener, to be honest with you, because the family tells you in Iran that, hey, people knows you, they recognize you. So yeah, okay, so what? But it was a different feeling, that to have that moment, to be with them. They came yesterday from Iran. They see you, they get surprised. Some of them, they come and cry. Some of them hug you. Some of them take picture. Some of them wants to know what's happening. To me, it was amazing. It was an amazing trip, just seeing my, fellow Iranian coming from Iran.
I'm really glad you told that story, and I'm glad that you're getting that feedback. I'm grateful. I've kept you too long. I know it's late in London, and I really appreciate the time you've given us, and I look forward to chatting with you more. Thank you so much for doing this today.
Thank you so much for the time you give me, and it was a pleasure to be in your program.
Merci. Khodafis.
Khodafis. Shab.
right. This is Rook episode 290. Farshad.
What a nice guy. Honestly, I was just listening to that and I was he's so
That's
nice.
what you took away from that?
Yeah.
He is a nice guy. It's clear.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I love the story about his wife. And, you know,
yes.
a good romantic story.
Yes. And when he's talking about his emotions and how much these things affect him, and of course famously crying on the air and all that. He's a very I think that's one of the reasons. I mean, as I said to him in the interview, I think that's partly why people feel connected to him. He comes off as a very human, serious news anchor, even if he says he's not that serious. All right, I said we'd do the roundup if on the other side of Farshad, so let's get to a couple of items now. And before we had Farshad on at the top of the show, we were talking briefly about the Middle East and the situation there and the actions of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and I was saying that I wanted to talk something about how the impression of Iran is going to change again. And I feel like we were talking about on our bonus podcast on Monday that this $6 billion thing, for example, right? It was kind of, when that deal for the hostages was done and part and parcel of it was $6 billion goes, unfreezes or however you want to parse it, but basically goes into the coffers of the regime as part of the deal that the U.S. makes. It did make the news, but it really didn't register that much, I feel like, for the broader world, the non-Iranian community. Amongst Iranians, some Iranians, it was a really big deal.
Oh, yeah.
And we talked about it, but, it wasn't. Now, because Iran, of course, has played a role, however specific or not, in its ongoing support of Hamas and Hezbollah, etc., in this tragedy and these atrocities that have happened, and now a war has begun. Certainly in the United States, all of a sudden this $6 billion thing has become a much bigger issue. And Iran is once again on the agenda. I mean, I can never entirely guess what the mullahs are thinking, and because they're, who can, you have to put yourself in the mindset of a crew who will do anything to retain and maintain their power, and some of that is murdering kids and all that stuff. But I don't get this. I mean, they're cheering on this Hamas slaughter in Israel and all of that, and at the same time, I think this is going to change relations with Iran in the sense that, for example, if there was any recent increasing cozying up between the U.S. administration and Iran again, and we've heard some of that, and we were anticipating the path towards a new nuclear deal. I don't think the Biden administration can do that now.
No,
I mean, I think that all eyes are going to be on, what the Americans do, and engaging with Iran is not going to be one of the things that the American population would put up with.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think we're already seeing some backpedaling from even the Islamic Republic, because I think Khamenei took down a tweet or something like that he had put up about the support for Hamas, and
really,
yeah.
Khamenei was shamed out of one of his tweets.
Yes, and he made a statement. I think it was a tweet, because he also then made a statement saying, the U.S. or some politicians out there are labeling us as having support, but this is not. We didn't. What did he say? He said something like, we didn't encourage this, or we didn't have some part in this, or something like that. So there's definitely some backpedaling.
We were just like high-fiving and cheering when it all happened.
But he's trying to pinpoint that, we didn't have a hand in this in particular. Right. So there's some backpedaling. But I think it goes back to what you were saying about how it's difficult for the Biden administration, and even more crucially the Israeli government, to say that, Iran's had they have specific evidence that Iran is involved in this. Because if they do, then it affects, the decisions that they have to make. But at the very least, I think it's going to affect the region as a whole, whether it's Iran and the
100%.
U.S.
And at the most, it could precipitate military action on Iran. I mean, it's not without question, right? It's not. It's anything's possible. And as this conflict, this war, whatever as it develops and grows and elasticizes and metastasizes, and who knows who's going to get involved, how they're going to get involved, and Iran's name is in there all over the
sure.
place.
Yeah, and I think, again, Iran's already kind of putting some things in motion. They're trying to meet with the UAE. There's I think the foreign minister is on his way to Lebanon and Syria, I believe, the Iranian foreign minister. So they're already trying to kind of scramble because they know that this is going to have implications. And that $6 billion or whatever, I heard something that they were going to freeze it today, or there's some speculation that they're going to freeze.
Well, depending on who you ask. Now, do you have any update on this? Because by the time this podcast comes out, or by the time anybody's listening to it, there may be more clarity around this. But I'm seeing completely conflicting, like NBC News said that there was a deal between the U.S. and Qatar, that they're going to freeze that $6 billion, and then other sources have said, like the Qataris were ridiculing that,
Yeah, there's nothing concrete. I think it's just some speculation and, like you said, some reports from varying sources. So I know that initially there were some U.S. senators calling for that kind of freeze to be done, and they were criticizing the Biden administration for even releasing it, which we've talked about in length, which we also talked about on Monday. But as of right now, it's unclear, but there is some conversation. I actually had a good laugh about this because it goes back to what we were saying on Monday about it's $6 billion in the hands of the Islamic Republic, regardless of what it's going towards.
Right.
But there's some
because
conversation.
the U.S. administration still continues to insist at press briefings, et cetera, that this is earmarked for humanitarian.
Yes, exactly.
Every penny, and you're like, who are you? Who are you kidding with this, right?
Honestly, but that's what I was saying. It's kind of unclear, but there were reports that they were saying they're going to make it harder for the funds to be accessed and used for certain things, so that they can determine whether or not it was used to support Hamas.
But that's what I mean by how the politics have changed in a week.
Yes.
Right? Because this was basically off the radar and a done deal, and all of a sudden it's now, they can refreeze the, it's a different game all of a sudden,
And all of it, I think, it was never a formal agreement. And the more I was reading into this, the more it seems like it was just kind of this, what they're calling a quiet understanding or a quiet agreement. There was never something formalized about the nuances of how the funds would be transferred and used and all of that.
No.
There's some.
No, I
there's
think
some
the quiet
controversy on
understanding
that.
is whether they're going to freeze it or not again.
Yeah, maybe, but
I don't think the quiet
there was something that I was reading about the specific allocations of it, and they were saying how it's to be used for humanitarian. There's no follow up to that. Like, how are you going to, again, what we were talking about? How are you going to determine that?
The way that I have no idea, it's hard to. Who do you trust?
That's exactly it.
Everybody's got their own agendas in terms of the defensiveness of the American administration now and the offensiveness of the Iranian administration. But the guy, what's his name? Not Anthony Blinken, but the other guy, not Jake. Anyway, the person who was
Treasury guy,
the person who was doing the press briefing today.
Okay.
The American. In the movie, he's just an American. We don't need to know his name. No, he was saying, I can't remember what's his name. I feel bad now. It's not Jake Sullivan. It's not Anthony Blinken. It is it's the guy who does the kind of you looking it up?
Yeah, John Kirby?
John Kirby.
That's
John Kirby,
okay.
Yeah. John Kirby was basically saying he was saying every penny of that that the U.S. is going to oversee how it gets spent when it gets released.
Yes, but how?
Exactly.
Even
as he was saying it, I was going, what is the mechanism for this? Like is it cash in an envelope that you're going to see being carried to, Médecins Sans Frontières or somewhere or something? Like, how is this actually going to, the whole thing is so absurd. And he was saying the only difference between yesterday and today is we moved it from South Korea to Qatar. Meantime, Qatar is saying, if Israel attacks Gaza, we're going to cut off oil supply. None
of it makes sense.
None of it makes sense.
And even with the money, this is what I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine, and I was saying, okay, let's just imagine that this $6 billion, sure, it's only going to be used for humanitarian aid or whatever else it is that you want to call it. The fact is, the Islamic Republic now has $6 billion more that they can do whatever they want with, whether it's humanitarian, and they're going to allocate other funds that they have for all sorts of other bullshit.
Exactly. But don't tell John Kirby that.
Yeah, right.
It was, it's it's a weird position I'm in all of a sudden. I'm cheering on like Fox News reporters. I'm like, yes,
This has never happened
question
before.
him about the 6 billion. Yeah. Anyway, let's get to some of the other things that are going on in Iran. And a couple of follow-ups. Actually, all of these items are really depressing.
Unfortunately.
No surprise, but Armita Geravand, the young woman, the teenager,
The 16-year-old.
16-year-old who was on the subway and had a confrontation with hijab police and then has been in a coma since then. This is bad news.
Yeah. So recently, there were reports of her being declared brain dead, and there's some reports of her doctor saying, you know, there's now no hope for survival, and that her brain activity is at such a low point that essentially she may as well be pronounced dead. So it's really, really sad news. But again, you know, the one thing that I keep hearing and seeing on Persian Twitter, my one source, is that, you know, a lot of people are saying that we don't know if this is true. We don't know if the information that we're receiving is true. We don't know what's happening. Why is it that they're saying she's brain dead and not actually pronounced dead? So there's some kind of back and forth there. But again, like you said, it's definitely not good
By
news.
the way, it's not your one source.
No, I'm joking.
I know
of
that
course.
you check a bunch of, but and again, perhaps, I don't know, tellingly or sickeningly, there were some reports that her mom had come out and said, no, she's fine, or like it's all blown up. It's not, it's not as bad as people think. And that was obviously
coerced.
People imagine was coerced by the, so in the absence of empirical evidence, you look at the pattern beforehand. And as I did in that essay a couple of weeks ago, or last week, I guess it was, there's no mystery to this.
No.
I mean, it's the same pattern repeating itself over and over again. It's Flight 752, you know.
It's disinformation.
Well, we don't really know what
yeah.
happened. There's a lot of different information. The people who were saying IRGC shot down a plane were right from the beginning.
That's right.
Right? Nazila Maroufian.
Yes.
What can you tell us about her?
So Nazila Maroufian, she's also in her 20s. I think 24, if I'm not mistaken. She's a journalist, and she was arrested numerous times over the course of the past year and a bit. Most famously, she was targeted because she had interviewed Mahsa Amini's father, and that really landed her in trouble with, you know, the police force in Iran. And she was arrested, she was detained, she was sentenced to prison for 1 year, and then she got out on early release. All sorts of things there. So now what's happened is she was essentially forced into exile. She's now in France, and she's released a video online basically talking about what had gone on and what she's endured. She mentioned that she was in prison in northern Iraq for 13 days.
Iraq?
Yeah. Picking on how I say things again. Northern Iraq.
Wasn't sure where you were talking about. Just clarifying. Yeah.
And she was detained and tortured for 13 days, and she actually had visible bruises and markings on her face in this video. And so, she went on Instagram and live and talked about everything that she's kind of had to deal with. And something she mentioned that really kind of, it shouldn't be shocking, but was really, really upsetting is she had received death threats, and her mother was told point blank that her daughter was going to be killed one way or another. And I just thought, again, to talk about what we've talked about for the last year and a bit, the resilience of these young women and what they're constantly going through and yet fighting through it.
And speaking of resilience of women in Iran, we talked on Monday about Narges Mohammadi.
Yes.
Half of the title of the Monday podcast was Nobel and Narges, of course, the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, and historically so, one of the few women who's won this, and she does this as she's jailed and has been jailed 12 times. And we talked about on Monday how winning the Nobel Peace Prize, despite what someone would instinctively or intuitively might think that this is going to somehow create protection around her because she'll be watched now. She becomes an international cause, somebody who people know, somebody who people, there's a bigger pool of respect, and you can't. And we talked about how that is not the case, how Shirin Ebadi's life was became much, much more difficult under the hands of the regime after she won the Nobel Peace Prize, almost in forms of reprisals. And now already, I mean, that was Monday. 3 days later, we're already seeing that with Narges Mohammadi, right?
Yeah, so her lawyer actually reported that he was denied a meeting with her coming off the heels of this win and you know, the conversations we've had about her. And it was because she refused to wear her hijab to come to the meeting. So there's some reports of the fact that she was in the clinic, in the prison clinic at the time. And so she was supposed to have this meeting with her lawyer, and leading up to going to that meeting, she had said she wasn't going to wear a hijab. And so she was then assaulted and then taken back to her cell. And then her lawyer was told that she wasn't going to have that meeting with him.
Yeah. It's a pretty tough week.
Yeah. Lots of no happy news, unfortunately.
Well, yeah. Well, we have to search for it, but when there's a lot of horrible stuff happening in the world, it's hard to sometimes focus on the happy stuff. Thank you, Pega.
Thank you.
We're back on Monday with the bonus podcast of the Roundup. I think we have a special guest coming as part of our Roundup on Monday. In the meantime, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. This is full time for Rook for today. All things Rook related. Go to our website, rookmedia.com, rookmedia.com. That's also where you can press the support us button and become a Rook member on Patreon. And starting in November, you get extra content. Our Monday shows are for Patreon members, so join up. Thanks to the amazing team who put this show together each week. Talented Anahita, Savvy Roham, Smart Pega, Bearded Omid, Methodical Kabe, Super Parisa. Thank you to all of you out there for supporting us and sharing our content. Please do subscribe if you haven't done so already on any or all of our platforms. Find me on Instagram at Jian Ghomeshi. Mizunbashi.